Nvidia, the world's biggest company, valued at $3.6 trillion released better than expected earnings results after the US market close. What's next? What do you need to know? Welcome to the Daily. My name's Jessica Amir, market strategist with Mumu. Well, it's the moment that financial markets have been waiting for. For some, it's a bit like Christmas. Nvidia released stronger than expected earnings, and they're also guiding for strong revenue growth ahead. And most numbers have far exceeded estimates. We'll bring those to you. But the bottom line is this: Nvidia sees demand far exceeding supply for the next several quarters, particularly for their Blackwell chip. Now, this basically reflects that hyperscale tech companies such as Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Tesla, who are some of Nvidia's biggest clients, they're honouring their commitments and keeping their commitments to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in AI technology. So what are the numbers that you need to be across? Let's bring them to you now. We can see that Nvidia's quarterly revenue rose 94% year on year to $34.08 billion. That beat expectations. And Nvidia also sees revenue rising to another record, $37.5 billion next quarter, but plus or minus about 2%. More or less, the takeaway here is that's about in line with what Wall Street was looking for, expecting $37.1 billion to be announced in forward revenue for next quarter. Now, what's really key is this: sales growth was the highest in their automotive division, as in selling chips to EV companies. So revenue in that sector rose 72%. And of course, EV demand, as we know, as we've been speaking about, is expected to take off in the US, particularly with Elon Musk and Donald Trump's newfound relationship. So you're probably going to expect higher revenue in Nvidia's automotive division. But of course, their biggest division is their data center one. That accounts for most of their revenue, and sales, of course, mostly go to Magnificent Seven companies like Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Tesla, and the list goes on. Well, that key division, they saw revenue rise to another record of $30.8 billion. That's up from almost $15 billion, and it also beat the forecast as well. So what do you need to know? Well, I guess it's important to note that some traders might be turning their noses up at Nvidia because their costs are starting to rise a little more than expected. And also traders, I don't really think that they like the fact that Nvidia is saying that their newest chips, Blackwell and Hopper, are experiencing certain supply constraints. But we do have to remember this: if you are an investor, the narrative is increasingly bullish. There's no other company in the world that's growing their income and profits by this magnitude, and that has 40% of their clients in big tech names, some of those we mentioned earlier, such as Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, and Tesla. Plus, last but not least, of course, Nvidia is continuing to roll out new products. So they're widening their moat, edging away competition. And of course, Nvidia is sending out those new chips from next quarter. But what's happening with their shares? Well, we do know, as we spoke about yesterday, the market was bracing for an 8% swing in either direction, and that would equate to about $300 billion in value in change in Nvidia. But we didn't see that. Nvidia shares did fall, though, about 1% after hours. They're at $144.21 as we speak. Now, Nvidia, yes, it had a high earnings bar to jump over to please the market. It did that. It jumped over the hurdle, proving that it can keep jumping over hurdles ahead. But we do really need to see the breadth of their revenue growth in the EV sector rise, and for revenue growth to extend to other sectors such as healthcare. We've been speaking about this for some time, so you need to see this over the next couple of quarters. Now, if this happens, which you'd expect it would, Nvidia shares will probably be much higher in a year. Keep an eye on Nvidia shares tonight, though. I suspect you could see some upgrades in Nvidia shares, but it'll be really telling to see what traders think of Nvidia's results. If we do see traders really spark a sell-off, it might be short-lived. And you might see investors pounce on any dip because Nvidia's long-term bullish scenario seems intact. Perhaps you could say that Nvidia is only just warming up. As for other markets that you need to be across, well, of course, it's all about tech. That's despite tension with Russia and Ukraine picking up. Bitcoin's bonanza has continued, and Bitcoin has risen above 94,000 US for the first time in history. It's now up almost 130% this year. So sentiment in Bitcoin is strong. Affiliated stocks are doing really well, and sentiment might be expected to continue to pick up for stocks like Block, Tesla, and Bitcoin miners such as Marathon Digital. But also keep in mind, Nvidia has got a pretty strong correlation with Bitcoin's price. There's a good reason for that. Nvidia sells a lot of chips to Bitcoin miners. Also consider chip and data center demand. Now consider battery and chip metal prices are moving up, with aluminium, copper, and nickel prices moving higher. And of course, that's because we are now playing with this scenario that demand is expected to exceed supply and naturally push up those prices. So do keep an eye on Rio Tinto shares and BHP. Of course, they're some of the largest players in this space. And that's the daily. We'll see you tomorrow.